In this video, I'm going to show you how to fold an origami turtle called Chelone, designed by Melina, Yureiko, Hermsen. This is quite a time-consuming fold, but in my opinion well worth the effort. I'll be using a sheet of elephant hide, which is especially sturdy paper and suitable for wet folding. You can use other types of paper, of course, but do take care to use paper that's quite sturdy so that it doesn't rip when you fold it back and forth multiple times. Now this sheet is 49 centimeters or 19¼ of an inch long and 34½ centimeters or 13½ inches wide, and the finished turtle is then 20 centimeters or 8 inches long, 13 centimeters or 5 inches wide, and depending on shaping, about 4½ centimeters or 1¾ of an inch high. This is the reverse of the model, by the way, and this is the front. Now you can use paper that's slightly wider if you want, because we're folding behind some of the excess paper. But as you can see here, you really don't want to make it longer, else you won't have enough space to fold the legs of the turtle. Now I colored this elephant hide with some acrylics just so that it's easier to differentiate the front and the reverse of the paper, but you can use paper that's the same color on both sides, as you can see here. Just one side of the paper will be showing. And as you can see, Melina used some tessellation techniques to form this shell. So the very first step is to fold a triangle grid that has 64 divisions parallel to the short side. So this is going to keep you busy for a while, and I'm sure at some point you will wish that it went by as quickly as this time-lapse of me folding that grid. And of course, if you're not sure how to fold a triangle grid, you can follow one of my videos on that. Although, to be honest with you, if you've never folded a triangle grid, you might not want to attempt this turtle quite yet. Now let's see whether this is a 64 division grid. That's a division by 2, by 4, by 8, by 16, by 32, and by 64. So this grid is now all done, and we can continue with the next step. We're going to unfold this, and we're going to work on the reverse, which is not going to be visible. So this side of the paper is on the top, and the color of the turtle is on the reverse. Now we have to find the center, so maybe we'll just fold this edge to edge and then make this a strong crease so that we can easily see it. Or actually, we want to go over by 1, 2, 3 of these grid sections, and that will allow us to have a bit more space for the head than for the tail of the finished turtle. Okay, so once we have that nicely marked, we also want to find the center in this direction. So that's pretty much here. And when you have that point, then we want to add an open back hexagon pleat. So we have the center, and then we're going to go up by 1, 2, 3 edges of the triangle. And just use all 3 of those creases to have a point here. And then we're going to go over here by 1, 2, 3, and then add the next point of the hexagon. And let's just really make those nice mountain folds. And then the next one, 1, 2, 3 edges of those small triangles on the grid. And again, use the creases that form 120-degree angles, so 2 triangles in between. And the next one. And we're almost all the way around. Just finishing off the last points. This one and that one is the final one. So now you can see here you've got a hexagon, and now we want to flatten it down. It doesn't really matter in which way you let the pleats fall, so I'm going to flatten this to the left using a grid line that's right next to the mountain fold to form that open back hexagon pleat. Like this. So this is what you have now, and this is the reverse, and you can start seeing that shell emerge. Now we need to form a ring and then another ring of these open back hexagon pleats. For this you're always going to first fold 2 sections up, and then you'll see you have the start of a hexagon, and then you're going to again count 3, open up the pleat, and then again count 3, and just form a lot of hexagon pleats. And again, you're going to spend lots of time on this, and I'm just going to speed through it, as you might wish at some points too. But you know, you might also find this exercise very relaxing, just like the grid folding. And for the last one of that first ring, you're just going to open up this pleat, and it's almost done. The last one's usually a bit more unfolding, and really just a couple of creases to add. On the second ring it will be even more so that, you know, you always have that on every second one you do. So we'll see that just in a second. So now you have these, and this is what it looks like from the reverse, or actually the front, which is the shell. So then you're just going to continue, and this, for example, is the next hexagon. So that's the first one from the second ring, and as you can see here, that hexagon, at least if all of these are folded open, is almost done. So you just need to open that pleat and then add a couple of new pleats to finish the next one. And it will always be like this if you do it in the order that I am doing it. Once you have to do a bit more work, and then the next one you're almost done, just you have to unfold one pleat extra. Now these are the last two, and I actually don't quite collapse the one just before the last one because it gets a bit messy and I don't really see the need to do it. So I'm just opening this up, and as before, working to make that hexagon pop up. And then right here I'm not really going to try and extend the creases too much. It's not required, and at this point it's not really going to add confusion, and we'd have to open those creases in a moment in any case. So this one's basically done, and then we can open this one. And you can see here there's almost nothing to do because we didn't have to add that pleat and open it again for this one. So now we have our two circles, and this is what it looks like from the reverse, but these are very tightly closed and packed. Now if you look at this turtle here, to form it into this nice 3D shape, we need some space and some movement here. So the next steps, and this is going to take quite a while, is just about opening the shell so that it's easier to form it into a 3D shape. And for this we're first going to start by making triangle twists in all of these small sections. And the first one, you just decide which direction it is. And I hope you know how to do a triangle twist. And if you don't, again, you might want to work on a less elaborate project first. And after that, you will always have one of these edges determining the direction of the next triangle twist. And I just like to always open these up so that I have all three of these creases in the right direction. Push this and then just push on the top, and press it down. I'm just going to zoom in to show it in detail. So here we have the edge that determines the direction of the next crease, and then we just need to have this standing up. So you can see we have to fold this over here and this one over here, and if you press these three down, it's just going to open up, and I'm going to help it along and then press it down. And depending on what paper you're going to use, this is going to be more or less work. And with elephant hide, triangle twists are very easy, while, you know, for example, the grid folding takes quite a bit more time, and other steps too. So here we have our first ring of triangle twists, and we're going to repeat that with all of the rest of them. So now we have all of these triangle twists, and that went by rather quickly, but actually this step isn't quite done yet. It's going to be quite a bit more work. So I'm going to zoom in just on this section to show you in detail what happens next. So for the next little while, we're going to be busy with turning these triangle twists just a bit more. And you're always going to take one of these edges, and they're going to be folded along to the grid line. So you're basically going to fold over this one and that one and this one. It's quite small, so I'm sorry if my fingers are hiding some of it. I'm trying to make it as visible as possible, and once the twist is done, you'll be able to see what happened. Can you see here? That edge is now lying on the grid line, and there too. So it's twisted just slightly differently now. And then you're going to continue with the next one. And again, the twists determine which way to twist it further. Just always look for the edges. And this one's already folded a little, so you'll have extra layers that you're going to be folding up over each other. And that's fine, and we're going to balance them out in the end. Well, not in the end, but in the next part of this step. And I'm just going to show that to you now, because all of this is going to be done on all of these sections. So once you have these two, you can pull them apart, kind of folding in half these triangle twists to make this pop up. And then we're going to fold this in half, just a pre-crease. You see that? Fold it about in half. Press it, so you've got a nice strong crease. And then you're going to want to open this up. And one way is to kind of go right there and push it open, and then make that collapse down. And you can do it other ways too, and then you can press in the other creases again, like that. And then you have something like this. And then you're going to flatten it down and open those triangles again. And then you end up with something like this. Can you see that? And you want to do that all over, which is definitely going to take a while. So I'm just going to show you once more, and then I'm going to speed it up. So here we have another triangle, which we're going to twist a bit further. Then we have these two sections that we open up. We add a small pre-creasing right there, and open up again, and then squash that section down. And collapse it down, like that. And now if we look at the reverse, you can see this now easily opens, whereas before it didn't, and that allows the 3D shaping. So now let's do it in all of these triangle twists. Now once you've done all of the ones here in the center, let's look at how to form these on the edge, because you don't have a second triangle twist here. And these are actually much easier. We're going to take this pleat and we're going to fold that section in half. And this kind of corresponds to that pre-creasing we did in the other step. Then unfold, and then we're going to go along those two creases that we created, making this kind of very narrow double pleat on both sides. So here you can see it looks like this, okay? And then you're going to extend that all the way here, and again fold in half that triangle, and then you're just going to bring that to a point and then flatten down. And if you work tidily, not quite like me right now, it will look like half of these right here. I'll just show you another one, hopefully a bit more tidily. First fold in half, fold this one in half too, so that you can extend the crease, makes it a bit more precise. Then make that mountain fold into a flat crease line and have mountain folds next to them to have that narrow section. Extend it all the way. If it doesn't want to go, you might have to push out that crease there too. Okay, like that. And then bring this to a point. See here, you'll have a small triangle. And you know, it's the reverse of the paper, so it doesn't have to be super precise in any case. And then you do that for all of these all around. So this is what you get once all of that is done, and I'd say that's step 2 done. And here you can see you now have that shell prepared and it moves nicely. And the next step is to actually give that the shell shape. So for this, we're first going to work on the sides, and we're going to add mountain folds right through the center of all of these hexagons. So because you're only adding creases here, I actually like to fold in the air and just go through the small triangles. And because you have a grid throughout, it's easy to get this quite precise. And you're going to extend it just a little bit further. And once you've got one done, just press it flat and then do the other side. Again, going through the center and trying to make it nice and precise. And then pressing it. And then here we're going to take the corners of this hexagon right here, and we're going to take and make a crease through those 2 points, and then extend it over there, and the same here, and there, and there. Okay? So start with the corners to get the crease started in the correct place, and then extend it, and just be careful on the corners. You can try and make it nice and sharp. And then go to the next one. Again, going through the points and getting a nice sharp intersection. And same on the other 2 of these sides of that shell. Then next we're going to add creases around that shape, and we're always going to take, if you look at the center of this crease, you'll have 2 triangles meeting there, and we're going to take 1, 2, 3, 4 edges and after that add a crease. So what I like to do is I count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I make a small pinch. And just double check 1, 2, 3, 4, that's fine. And then turn it around and then work on the reverse to again add mountain folds in the air. I find it much easier to add mountain folds in the air. So here you have to be careful to not unfold these pleated sections, and this is going to be especially important when we collapse that shape, but also now it kind of secures them a little already. And here I'm going, well, not quite to this pleat right here, but I'm kind of leaving 1, 2, 3 triangles untouched. And then we do the same on the other side. And then you do the same on these edges. So if you look at this edge right here, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4. Make a pinch, check that it's the right spot, turn it around, and then go through all of these pleats and the grid intersections for nice precision, and add that crease. And here you will see that it meets the crease we just made, and on the other side we're not quite done yet, but we can then add that here. But as always, I like to just count here 1, 2, 3, and 4, make a pinch, and then add that crease. Of course, you can use a different method to find the correct placement. This is just what I like to do. So now you have this, and of course, if you want to collapse this kind of base, you also need creases that start from these points right here. So we're going to have mountain folds that connect these 2 points and go all the way through. So we're going to make those mountain folds, and again you're going to use the grid to get nice precision, just always going through the center of each of those triangles on the way. That's the first one, this is the second one. This one actually starts in the center of a triangle, just in case you're wondering, that is correct. And the same holds for this one, and that's because we placed the first hexagon off center. So if you're worried that you made a mistake, you didn't. That's just the way it's supposed to be. And of course, when you have mountain folds, you need matching valley folds. So for this one, we're going to have some parallel to these straight edges. On these sides of the tail and the head, they're going to be just 4 spaces apart, and it doesn't really matter which side you go. I usually go one side for the tail and one side for the head, so the other one. And for the legs, we're going to go to the inside. So again, you count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you add a valley fold. I prefer doing this again from the other side, and this time it's actually quite easy to see where that mountain fold from the color side is, so it's easier to maybe start the crease there and then just add that. And of course you only need to go to the outer of this oddly shaped hexagon and not all the way around. So we did it here, so I'm doing it on that side here, and this is probably why I do it, because it's always closer to me if I just turn around the model. And then I'm just going to find a place where there's none of these pleated sections to count, because that makes it a bit more difficult to see what's happening, and then use the crease that I already started to get the correct direction. And then on these sides I count on the front and you just have to check that you find a place where you've kind of got this crease, and then perpendicular to it you'll have a grid line, and then you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just give it a small pinch. And also on this side, while we're doing it, 1, 2, 3, 4, give it a small pinch to then flip it over and add those valley folds. Always make sure to have those pleats in place while adding these creases. It's super important. And same on this side. And now we also need some creases right in the center so that we can collapse there, and you've got your valley fold here, and you're going to connect it to this point right here. And this needs to be a valley fold, but it might be easier to make it a mountain fold and then a valley fold. Depends really on how easily you can see these points. I think I'm fine doing it as a valley fold immediately, and there are advantages to doing that because the collapse will be just slightly easier. So try to do it that way first, and if it doesn't work for you, you can first do the mountain fold. And here again you can see that fold right here and this intersection, and that's where the valley fold needs to go. And of course you have your grid lines as orientation as always. And you need to go through several layers here, so really pushing them down helps with the collapse of that shell form. And then we have this. And now we need to put it together to then have that shell formed. So I like to just pinch those mountain folds again, and then after that's done, I like to strengthen those valley folds by just pushing these two together and then pressing from inside again, just so that, you know, we have those nicely sorted. And same here, okay? And then you also do that here and here actually, and same here and here. And I forgot to mention that just a second ago. So you have a mountain fold right here, you have an intersection here, and you add a fold between those two, always going through the grid to get nice precision. And if you're not sure where the intersection is, you can check the back just to be sure that you're placing your creases correctly, because if you've got creases in the wrong place, it's not really going to show up, but it's going to make the collapse more difficult, and really we don't want to make things more difficult, right? We always want to make things easier for us. So let's try and get the right creases in place the first time round. Okay, so now that we've got that, then we're going to strengthen those mountain folds again, and also go around here, just pressing those valley folds so that it's easier to collapse the moment in a bit. And usually this would be, you know, not a that difficult collapse, but because we have all these pleats in place, because of that nice pattern, it's just slightly more elaborate. So now we can take this one and then fold that over like this. Can you see that? And this paper will have to go somewhere, but we have our crease in place. So let's try and work that out so that it folds over and then flatten it down. That works nicely, right? So let's do that on the other side too. Just pinching that in place letting it fold over and down. And then you do the same thing here. Right there and right there. And because we have the pre-creasing done, the paper wants to go where it should go. Although you will still have to make sure that nothing unfolds. And here it's really important to check that all the pleats stay in the right place and that the paper indeed does go along the crease lines we prepared rather than forming new crease lines. So let's see. For example, here you can see we really want to have that push inside like that. And same here, just ensuring that this pleat does not unfold and we make it nice and tight. And then we do the same on this side, just checking that we get that tight collapse, and then we can try and flatten this down as much as possible, especially so that you can see what it might look like if you're folding along, and I hope some of you are folding along. So there we go, and then just going to flip this over and you will be able to see just a tiny overlap here and just a tiny overlap here. And if you used different dimensions paper, like something that's closer to a square, then this will be showing much more, and that's fine too. But here, you know, it's quite minimal, and as I said in the beginning, you shouldn't go wider, like a longer rectangle than I did, because then you won't have enough space for the legs forming, and you can see here it's quite tight. There's not that much paper, and now we can form the legs and the tail and the head. So now let's form one of the legs, and all four of them are going to basically be the same, just, you know, sometimes flipped a little. And it's not too difficult. We're going to unfold this a little, and then we're going to have mountain folds parallel to this one with two of these edges of the triangles in between. So I'm counting 1, 2, and then I know where to place that mountain fold, and then I'm extended all the way to that shell, and of course to the edge too, making a nice and strong crease. And same on this side, counting 1, 2 of those edges of the triangle to get the correct distance, and then adding the crease up to the shell, and then just going to check that this is extended all the way to the top. We're going to connect these 2 points, and that will be a parallel crease to a grid line, but it's not going to be on the grid. So you can see here that's perhaps halfway, or just a little bit more than halfway between 2 grid lines right there. And then we have a valley fold here for the collapse already. We need to add it here, so again we're counting 2 of these edges of the triangle to then add a crease, and it of course needs to be a valley fold. I just started it as a mountain fold to mark where it needs to go, and then I'm using the reverse of the paper, and here you can see this pleat unfolded a bit. We really don't want that happening, so just make sure that you refold them if they ever unfold, and then you extend it all the way to that valley fold crease right here. And then when you have that in place, I'm just going to press this and then we can collapse this, and there's going to be a valley fold here, and we're just going to have that form by collapsing the paper down. So we've got all of this in place, and then we're going to fold it down and press. And I find that's much easier, and it's going to be in just the right spot. And then the beginning of one of your legs is formed. So this is what it looks like from the inside, and here on the sides, like that. And of course, in the reverse, this is what you have right now. And then you repeat that on the other 3 legs. So then all your 4 legs are prepared for the shaping. This is what it looks like right after you formed your 4 legs. And then we're just going to take one and take a closer look at this section. So here's that leg close up, and if you really press down the shell, you'll see that it will be covering part of a triangle. So we're going to count that part of the triangle and 2 full triangles, and from there we're going to go through the centers of the triangles to have mountain folds right there. Like this. And then you're going to extend that crease out, again going through the triangles, always through grid lines, always folding those triangles in half. Just make sure that you get it correctly. And then, depending on how much paper you have left here, you're also going to start a crease in this point, going out, making a mountain fold here, bringing this to a nice sharp corner, and then you're going to reinforce this mountain fold. And you also need a valley fold right here, 2 spaces apart from this mountain fold. So you just pick a spot, you count 1, 2, and then add that crease, ensuring that the pleats don't unfold. And you go all the way to this tip. Then we're going to take this one right here, and with these 3 mountain folds in place, you're just going to press this together, fold this up, like that, and then you have this paper right here, and you can fold it in like this if you want, to then flatten that leg like this. And then later we can also fix this, but if you want, you can already now take this paper and put it to the back, so now it's hidden away. So now you repeat that on the other 3 legs, adding the off-grid creases, but still using the grid for precision, and continuing as before. Now once you have all your 4 legs formed, you will see that this is not quite symmetrical. So for example, here you can see I've got a little less overlap than here, and that's just because when we placed that first hexagon, it wasn't exactly in the center because of the way the grid is folded. It's not going to be central in both directions. And that's totally fine. We're going to, this is paper we don't need in any case. So we're going to now form the tail and then the head, and then we're going to finish with some shaping that's going to also lock those legs in place. But for now we actually want the paper to be flexible so it's easier to work on the other parts. So we're going to start just like with the legs, and just be careful, we're working on the tail, so this is going to be the section that's not quite as tall as this section, because this is where we need the space for the head. So we're going to open this, and then as before add parallel creases, 2 triangle edges apart from the one that we have already. Just ensure that those pleats do stay in place. And it should end up right on this point of the hexagon, just in case you're wondering. And same on the other side. So now you have this, and we really want to enforce that nice tip here. And then we're going to add creases that go through the center of this edge right here and the crease next to it. Like that. And now before we do the collapse, we have a valley fold right here already, and we need a matching one on this side. And then we can press this together, just ensuring that we're going along those off-grid creases that we just added, and pushing down and adding a new crease right here just by pressing down. Okay, so now we have this, and then we're going to count 1, 2, 3 of these triangle edges to then add those creases that we added for the legs too, that go through the center of the triangles, so adding new creases. And then as before, we're going to open the paper and add mountain folds so that we can collapse this, just going through all the layers. And same here. And I think something's slightly off. I didn't expect it to be so unsymmetrical here, so I think I went through the wrong creases somewhere. Yes. So if it looks a bit off and not quite symmetrical on both sides, then probably somewhere along the way you jumped to the wrong triangle on the grid, and that just happens on especially such elaborate projects. And it happens to me, it might happen to you. That's not an issue. Just when you recognize it, fix it. And then we need the parallel valley folds. Again, 2 triangle edges apart. They're quite short, so not a lot of work to add. And you might just add them in the collapse, but I like to prepare them just so that they fall in the right place. And then we can see that this right here is a mountain fold again, and then collapse it over, and then let that tail form just like the legs. This is going to be a bit messy, don't worry about it, because we're going to fix that. So now we're going to take this paper, take it out, and just move it to the back, and then press it down, and then that's not visible from the front. If you have that tip showing, you can always fold behind the paper a bit more, but I really like to leave that to the end when we clean up all of the edges. So next we're going to work on the head, and let me just rotate that paper so that we can work on this section now. For this we're going to start as before by opening this section and adding mountain folds, 2 of these triangle edges apart from the one that's already there. And then get that crease in place, and then also that valley fold that we need for the collapse. And then perhaps strengthen those creases to collapse down, as with the tail and the legs, especially as with the legs, because here we've again got this straight edge. Now we again count, and this time we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those triangle edges. So quite a bit more because we need more space. And then we add those off-grid creases. This is why we moved the first hexagon a bit to one side, so that we do have that space to form the head and the neck, like that. And then we again need to add those mountain folds, and then next to it the valley folds, so that we can collapse this down again. And once you have all of those creases in place, the valley folds and the mountain folds, same here, we can then reinforce that mountain fold to then collapse down this section. And fold this over to one side. We're going to get rid of it in a second, so it really doesn't matter which. Press this down flat, and then here this, we're just going to fold it underneath there, so that we now have a quite clean place. We're also going to work a little on this section right here, so I'm just going to pull that open and apart, just opening this a little bit. And then press this out, and you'll have kind of this V shape that you want to form here, like that. And then you add a crease right here, just getting rid of some paper you don't want in that front, so that it's not too bulky, especially when we then in the end fold it all to the back. Now this neck is quite wide, and we're going to make it a bit narrower, and then we're also going to start forming the eyes. So you'll see a small cut off triangle here, and then we're going to count 1, 2 heights of a triangle, and then we're going to go along the grid line to narrow the neck like this. But we don't want to go in too far, so we're actually going to add some creases that then go through perhaps half of that triangle here. Just adding mountain folds. And you're going to go up to that fold right there, really. And you're going to have a bit of paper tension. We're just going to squeeze that paper down in a second. And same on the other side. You first have that one section, and then 2 triangle heights, then you go in, and then you add an off-grid crease like that. So now your neck is a bit narrower, and once you have that in place, you're then going to keep that narrow, fold it down, and then you're going to add new creases in there just by pressing down on the paper. Now we want to form the eyes, and we really want to use that first section as kind of the eye itself, and then the surrounding paper to kind of have that shaping around to form the lids perhaps. So we're going to add a closed sink. I find it quite difficult to do this because there's so many layers of paper on top of each other. So what I like to do is I like to pre-crease, then do an open sink, and then go back to this stage and then do the closed sink. If you have different paper, or you have a different way that you want to do it, that's fine. So, but do bear with me while I add this pre-creasing kind of between these two grid lines right here. And then if you can, you're going to sink in along that crease, and this one you're going to sink out again, so that you kind of get that effect. But I really can't do that with elephant hide. I don't know, I don't get the desired effect I want. So I actually open the paper and add those creases so that they're nice and strong. And then I collapse this in an open sink, and then I take a tool to push out some of that paper again, to have, well, some call it a double sink, double open sink, but in the end it's going to be a double closed sink. Just pushing that paper out again to get that effect. So now we kind of have these eyelids and then the eyeball, but of course this is an open sink and that's not the desired effect we want. So now once we have that pre-creasing in place and it's quite strong, we can go back to this place and make the closed sink, which means we have to keep these layers together while doing the sink. So I'm just going to try and open this and then push the paper in. And maybe have a bit of help from a tool. A toothpick might do, depending on the size of paper you're using. And then pull out that paper. And then we have the closed sink with the eye, and then you can open the lids as much as you want for that nice eye. And you do the same on the other side. And once we have that, I did forget, for the tail we need to narrow that too. So we're going to fold behind along a grid line, very easy. You could do a sink here, but really I think a mountain fold is fine. It locks the paper in place nicely and is much easier to do. And then we have that. Now we're basically done, except we do need to do some shaping. First of all, we need to get rid of some edges. So for example, this edge of the paper I really don't like, because especially on this side it might show. So if you have that problem too, we're just going to very carefully unwrap that a little and fold it inside. And depending on how much paper you have here, you might want to fold it back again. For me, it works out fine like this, because I didn't use a very squarish paper. And same here, just pull out some paper here so that we don't see any of that tan color here, or beige, whatever you want to call it. And on this side it's not as important, but just for consistency's sake we can take a look here. Actually, this one I folded over to the wrong side, so I'm just going to take that, fold it over to this side to make it look symmetrical, and especially because I do need that paper here. I do need it for the nice frame. So yeah, there's a crease here right now that I didn't want, but it just happens, and who's gonna notice? Mostly you, and perhaps someone who's just as much chasing for perfection as you might be. And then also here, and wrap that. Don't rip any paper, not this far into the project. you know, you're almost there. You do not want to destroy the paper now. And there we go. And now at least I'm not seeing any of that reverse side of the paper. So now we can fold this to match with the end of the tail. Make a nice strong crease. Especially with elephant hide, I like to use a bone folder, else you very easily destroy your fingernails because it kind of you rub through them if you fold too much elephant hide, or at least me. I don't have very strong nails, they're quite thin, so I have to be a bit careful. And then here I also match up that tip of the nose. And the same on this side. And after that, you know, where does all this paper go, you ask? It's really up to you. You might want to fold it in a little here so that that edge doesn't show. Can you see this? This corner is a bit in the way. And then you can turn this over and look at it. And we're not quite done yet, actually. We've got the tail, but I just noticed, these legs are kind of not fastened down. So for this, we're actually going to narrow the legs because they're quite wide. And they're very wide because we wanted some extra paper so that we can fold all of these layers in just a little bit so that we lock them to the shell. So, you know, if you thought that you had many layers to fold in before, here, you know, just add a couple more. So, pressing this in, we're going in about half a triangle, but making it very precise here is not as easy because it's just such thick paper. So I'm going to do this side and then hold it in place while I do the other one. And I'm going to try and show you, hopefully, that this leg is much more fastened to the body. Can you see that? Compared to this, much better. And now for the very final shaping, I'm going to wet fold. And just so that this doesn't unfold, I'm already now going to fasten it with one of these paper clips. Just so that it's a bit easier for me, and especially while I'm trying to navigate the paper so that you can see it, hopefully, in the video. It's sometimes very easy to unfold stuff, and we really don't want that happening. So why not use a clip now rather than in a second? And then also on this side, folding it in. But hopefully you got the idea from the very first leg already. So now we have that one, and we can secure it maybe with one of these big ones. Wow, I'm going to have to use that one somewhere else, I think, when I do the wet folding part. But for now, I'm just using the ones that are handy right away. And at this point, you might be feeling the excitement of almost finishing this project. I definitely am. It's been the longest project I've done a tutorial for, I think. Not maybe the most difficult one, but definitely the one where you spend a lot of hours folding, really. And just for the sake of it, I think this is secure enough already, but I'm just going to fasten that. And then after this, we're done with the basic folding, and then you just need to do some shaping. You can do a lot of it, very little of it, I'm not going to do a lot. To be honest with you, I like the still somewhat geometric look the model has, and I'm fine with that. So now let's see. I'm just going to dump out my clips here and see which ones are bigger, and then maybe secure this one with one, and I'm going to take a smaller one for this one, a really tiny one. And now what we really want to do is get this kind of into the shape we like, then dampen it and then let it dry. So that, for example, this paper here, I really want this to be flat. So I'm going to take one of the bigger clips here, something unfolded here, and I'm not sure I want to fix it tidily at this point. Says Sarah, right? You're amazed. But I'm just going to go like this. So I want a nice and secure fix here, so I'm going to add a big clip here and another one perhaps here, and then one of the larger ones here. Okay, the legs need to be okay with smaller ones because they're quite secure just by the folding already. And I need the bigger ones for sections that need a bit more shaping. And then what I really don't like is this unfolding. So what I'm actually going to do is secure this pleat with a small one. There's some paper tension here. And then same on this side. Right there. So now we have this, which looks, well, relatively secured. There's an unsecure area here. I'm just going to move this clip over there. And same here, just working with those pleats because I want those to be nice and in place. Same here. Then I'm going to take some cotton pads and just fill that shell. Just going to squeeze that in a little. Hope I've got enough, but I'm going to make this work. Okay, you can see that. Nice and secure. And now I'm going to spritz this with some water and then let it dry. And then your origami turtle, Chelone, designed by Melina, Yureiko, Hermsen, is all done. If you liked this video, do give it a thumbs up, comment below and share it with others. And definitely send me photos of your completed models, I'd love that. Now, if you're into Melina's design aesthetic, go watch my video on her Imori snowflakes next. Or check out my playlist of other origami tessellations. Subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss my next videos. And as always, I hope to see you around, and happy folding!